And welcome back to another episode of Tech Pro Unicorn. I am your host, Michael Grace, and today I am joined by Matt Holmes. Matt is a marketing entrepreneur, a world record holder, a crypto holder and hodler, and the founder and CEO of handshaken.com, a company that connects contractors with local customers seeking quotes. So Matt, thank you for taking the time and joining us. For the listeners out there, Matt is actually joining us from Costa Rica. He's actually traveling back and took the time out of his journey to join us from Costa Rica. So you might hear some cool Costa Rican food being slung in the background as he joins us from a restaurant. But Matt, thank you for taking the time to join the podcast today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Michael, and for all the Spanish speakers out there. Hola from Costa Rica.
That's awesome. And maybe you could tell us just a little bit more about who Matt is and the journey you were on and how handshaken.com came about.
Sure. So the quick story is I went to college in Colorado, studied psychology, eventually went back after 6 months of being a used car salesman. I went back to study my master's in business because I really fell in love with entrepreneurship, and then had a real estate company for a few years. Loved the idea of assets. I realized assets are so much, they're just as important as monthly income and monthly sales as what you own, your net worth. So, I got kind of tired of the real estate industry. So for the past 7 years, I've been on handshaken.com, where I like to say that we build digital real estate and digital assets.
I love it. The folks are always interested in the man behind, right, the company or the person behind the company. You mentioned that you didn't mention, but in your bio and my super sleuthing about who Matt Holmes is, we discovered that you are a world record holder. Maybe you could tell us about that, because that's just really cool.
Sure. The world record, as you may guess, is related to handshaking, and was something that occurred in the early days of the business. When I was kind of getting tired of real estate, I took a 6-month special projects opportunity in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. And it was so cool because I suddenly had this job where I saw famous politicians walking around in the hall with me. Paul Ryan, Hillary Clinton, John Boehner, all these different politicians. It doesn't matter if you're left or right. It's pretty cool to be walking around famous politicians. It might be cooler to be walking around famous entrepreneurs, but I'll take what life will hand me. So I started taking photos with these politicians, and I'd always go for the handshake because I thought that made it look like we were close. It symbolizes the beginning of a relationship when you shake hands with someone. So my friends started seeing these pictures and calling me Handshaken Holmes. And although I realized politics wasn't my full-time calling, and that I wanted tech and internet and an online business with international staff, which is now what I'm doing now, I did know that the business was going to be all about relationships and handshaking and technology. So eventually I broke the world record for the world's longest handshake between two people. So I have a fellow world record holder with me who shook hands with me that entire weekend. It was 46 hours of shaking hands.
Wow. That's a long time. 46 hours of shaking hands. And what a cool thing, right? I mean, I know we're in the COVID age of fist bumps and elbow taps or whatever you call them, or, distant high fives, or Zoom meetings, or, in this case, leveraging technology to connect. But such a cultural part of of just who we are as humans is that connection by just reaching out and holding another human's hand and bonding in such a cool way. So what a cool name for a website. For those of you listening, it's Handshaken without the G. It's you got to throw your best Costa Rican slang out there and be like, "What's up, man? Handshaken," which is really cool. It's a very cool concept. So let's talk a little bit about the business. What really is the business of handshaken.com?
Sure. So in the early days, it was a video series, and I was trying to learn how did the top 1% use relationships to grow their success. So I started interviewing these people. Obviously, I knew some politicians. I got a couple billionaires on the show, and then I realized, wait, it's not about teaching, it's not about learning how to do this, it's helping other people do it. So the first thing that we offered was kind of personal branding, random online marketing services. Every entrepreneur who wanted to freelance and build a website, yep, went down that route and did random Instagram marketing. We'll write your blog post, blah blah blah, with kind of the theme of personal branding. And we never earned a lot that way because you have to convince a client to buy a service, and if you can't promise a return on that, well, like we did for the first few years, you're not going to grow much. Although I was chasing my passion, trying to help people network better and showing them how technology can help with that. So now for the past 3.5, 4 years, we've been building our own websites where we don't worry on if a client has a budget for a site. We build a website, we own it, and we invest and do everything for the website. We don't skimp it on any part. We do all the content, all the blogs, we register all the social media, etc. And we call those a lead generation website because each website now is not about a personal brand. It's about a niche and a location. So the first one is Fort Collins Concrete Contractors. So in the city of Fort Collins, we have people, homeowners calling looking for quotes for concrete. And then we would sell those phone calls to a concrete contractor, and he would pay for a product, the leads, not a service. And that's what we've been doing for the past 4 years. So I hope that wasn't too long-winded. Let me know if you have questions about that.
No, I love it, right? It touches that concept of digital real estate where, you're really providing a service and sure they're going to pay for it. But, if you think of the service providers, right, that's not their core skill set. I always say like, artists want to make art, not run a business or create, websites and then, they have no connections in that, and they hire somebody and it's great, they get a website but it's not SEO optimized, and right, like that's just not where people should spend their time in their business, right? They should be creating great products that people want to consume and let other people handle the SEO side and the internet side of it.
I do agree on that, but I would touch on just one little feature of that because of the ownership is something that a lot of people aren't thinking about today. Because when we build client websites, the client owns it. They own the domain name, they own the website, all the content, all the social media accounts. So if they want to take it away and go with someone else, they can. Where with our websites, our lead generation websites, we own the website. And actually, if a contractor is not getting us 5-star reviews, kind of like a landlord and a renter, well, then you can kick your renter out. Or we would remove our contractor and we would send the leads to their competitor who's going to get us 5-star reviews. So the ownership, I do agree with you that the artist needs to find someone who's going to do the marketing side of things because it is complicated. But at the same time, the artist, it's are you going to build a little tint on your piece of land, or are you going to build a mansion or a high rise and rent it out to other people? The domain name is what I see as the land. That's where the ownership starts. And then you can own, all the social media accounts with the matching handles. And we could go into lots of different details about that. But I just wanted to touch on the ownership side as you
I
go.
love it. Yeah, it's funny. I own a couple different small businesses just that my wife and I do, and she's always laughs at me because the first thing when we're like, oh, we should do this and we should call it this, the first thing that I do is do a domain name search, right? Because I'm like, if that
Love it.
domain name isn't available, that's not what we're calling it,
Love
right?
it.
We're gonna because you've got to have that persuasive brand across all your platforms, or consumers just it doesn't make sense to them, like they get
Yeah.
lost in that journey.
Love it.
um, so folks that are service providers that are maybe just starting out, what percentage of their time, right, do they need to spend building a network, and how does that work?
Yeah, well, in my opinion, if we're talking about networking for new business owners or entrepreneurs, it's something you should start doing now if you haven't already. And what I mean by doing networking is start thinking about relationships a little bit more strategically, both in your personal and professional life. And by strategically, I mean think about someone who you can help. These relationships, the relationship starts with a handshake, but it does not end by a used car salesman giving you their business card or shoving it down your throat. It ends with the used car salesman giving you advice on something that helps you with your life. And that's when you're going to trust the used car salesman. But a used car salesman, as I did for 6 months, are famous for they're not building trust, they're not providing value, they're just looking for a sale, and once it's done, you're not going to trust them, and that's how most people behave, unfortunately. So that's why it's important to be doing networking before you need it, because it's about helping other people. So I guess to sum it up, you should be networking before you need it. You should be doing it strategically, and you should be doing it strategically to help other people. Later, it'll pay off when you need it to, but don't worry about
Yeah,
that today.
I love that theme, right? Like so many people think I've got to network to make money, right? I've got to build relationships to get paid. I've got to, right? And they're always like, it seems like the short-term hustle to just make a paycheck. And right, having been in the business world for 20 years, I started when I was 5. Um, it's all about these long-term relationships that you build human to human, and those people might be here today and they might be at a different company tomorrow. And if you have that trust in that trusted advisor, they're going to call on you at company A, company B, company C, wherever they go, you're their guy, right? So you're trying to not get a sale, you're trying to build a long-term relationship.
Yeah, perfectly agree.
The entrepreneurs like yourself and others, the world has changed a little bit. What are entrepreneurs missing about networking right now? Like what they're I think there's a little bit of a struggle as everything's kind of gone virtual to some extent. Like how has that changed the world of networking?
Yeah, great question. I think there's a lot that's changing right now. It's kind of scary because it feels like so much is changing that you might be being left behind, and you're not quite sure what to do or what other people are expecting. But because I remember before the whole pandemic, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when I was emailing people, I had created a website, a personal website, and kind of optimized my social and gotten some other social proof on it. So like after I interviewed one billionaire, I post the interview and then I show that to the next billionaire, say, hey, if he did it, you can do it. He trusted me. Now you can trust me. So kind of building your personal brand online was a big opportunity, 6 or 7 years ago when I started these interviews. And unfortunately now I think there's more competition. There's more competition because everyone's been stuck at home and building their own personal websites. Domain name registrations have gone up. More people are trying to do online businesses. People respect remote work from home jobs. So there's more competition now, but that doesn't mean that it's too late. What do they say about planting a tree? The best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The next best one is today. Same thing.
Yeah.
If you start building your website today, it's a year old in a year, and Google's going to trust your website more. It's going to have more content on it. Just do it today. It doesn't have to be perfect, but go ahead and get started because it's not too late, and there's going to be only more competition as we progress in the coming years, I believe.
I love the kind of the theme, right? Like I always say all my entrepreneurs have hustle, right? Like they you tried used car salesman and went, yeah, this ain't gonna work. You pivoted, you did something else. Yeah, that isn't gonna work. You pivoted, right? Um, and that tenacity to not give up, that tenacity to find the thing that works, that's your passion project. What you know would it have helped to have a mentor, someone to kind of guide you? And how do entrepreneurs go about finding mentors, like someone to say, hey, don't make these 25 mistakes that I made, let me help you along the way?
Oh, mentorship, so important. I think I didn't really have a mentor when I was doing real estate. I had just graduated with my master's and was struggling through launching a real estate company. We were buying single family homes in Colorado with out of state investors. And, that's kind of a limited market, in my opinion. Real estate's never going to blow up like Bitcoin or websites or kind of the online opportunities we have because it's been around for so long. At the same time, it's a little bit more safe because of that. But I didn't really have a mentor, and I wasn't really that passionate about the industry of real estate. I didn't like being a landlord. I didn't like working with contractors. And I didn't really have anyone to tell me what that was going to be like in that business. I just didn't have the passion for it. But when I got caught shaking hands and my friends started calling me Handshake and Holmes, I'm like, that's what I care about, and networking. So, of course, I started interviewing these people. And interviewing people is a great way to find mentors. I remember the three billionaires I interviewed, One of them, we didn't vibe much. I don't even have his email. The other one, we vibed a lot, and I can text him, and I do text him a couple times each year to just kind of check in. And he's like in a different industry, so he's not the most meaningful mentor to my bottom line, although I do appreciate him very much. And there's that's like kind of a good way to get a mentor is find someone in your industry who's where you want to be in 1 year, and find another that's where you want to be in 10 years. And if they're in your industry and they kind of relate with you, they're naturally going to want to help you because they see their younger self in you. So that gives you an advantage over others. But don't forget, relationships are about providing value. So fast forward to today, now I've had a profitable business model for 4 years and been running the business for six and a half. And, my mentors where I'd want to be in, I'd say about hopefully 8 years by now because we've known each other 2 years. And our relationship helps him earn a little bit. It might help him earn a lot more later. We do a little bit of business together, but it started with personal relationship before professional. But of course, it was strategic on both of our sides. So that's kind of what I would recommend for all the listeners is find a mentor who's 1 year ahead of you, find another one that's 10 years ahead of you. Build a personal relationship and make sure it's mutually beneficial from day one. And I always appreciate it. If you aren't quite sure what value you're providing, at least appreciate it and follow up. And don't go cold. Don't not respond.
I love it. Yeah, it's so funny. We talk about mentorship and coaching and having somebody look at what you're seeing from the inside, from the outside, be able to give you that feedback. I heard a great quote today, and they said, you can't read the label from inside the bottle. And I was just like, oh, that's a great analogy, right? Because you're in here inside doing all of the stuff in your business, and somebody's outside looking at you going, hey, don't do this, or hey, what about this? And the 10-year one it's kind of the first time I've heard somebody talk about that, but that's awesome. That's like your aspiration, right? Like that's sometimes they say put your goals on the refrigerator, right? So they're always in front of you. And having a mentor that's 10 years down the road is a brilliant idea. I mean, it's so cool to be like, okay, if I stay focused, I can achieve, right? And here's my path. And then you have somebody who can tactically help you because they're only 1 year ahead of you. They can kind of tactically help you out. And then you have those folks that are further down. How do those mentors, like, what do they get out of helping an entrepreneur that's just starting? Why would they do it?
Well, I could answer that question, but one thing I wanted to add to that, which kind of also answers that question, is don't only worry about mentors. You should also worry about mentees. Who are you helping? And then you'll find out, well, why are you helping them? Do you think you'll make money from the relationship later? Do you enjoy helping someone who was asking all the questions where you were a year ago? It's things like that might be why mentors help us. But I think everyone has a different reason, and sometimes they can really surprise you. Sometimes it can be something totally unrelated and personally involved, and other times it can be a little bit more professionally motivated. They might think they can make money later if you're successful. Uh, there's always something that gets them interested, and it sometimes varies, in my opinion, more heavily than one would expect, which is okay. I think that's normal. So all I would say is if you want to understand why mentors are helping you, then go and find some mentees that there's something that you have experience with that someone else is trying to learn about while you're now maybe you're shifting, starting your business, maybe an industry very well as an employee on a big business, and now you start your own business as a small business. So now you can learn how do I, number one, run a small business and be the boss, but at the same time, you can still help other people with your technical expertise as a team member when you are deeper in that industry at a bigger company. Those are kind of good matches, in my opinion.
I love it. Just a reminder to always give back and be thankful. Even in the time that you're struggling, and when I do mentoring, and I have several mentors, oftentimes when I tell people, and they're like, "Oh, I wish I had a mentor, or I wish I could mentor," and then there's this self doubt. People are like, "Well, I'm not successful. I'm not this. I don't have anything to offer," and I think everyone has something to offer, even if you're struggling. That's valuable to share how things aren't working so that other people don't follow in those same footsteps and make a mistake. Or, hey, I tried that and here was my result. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try it, but I want to share, why it didn't work for me. Those words of wisdoms, are equally as valuable as, hey, look at me, I'm really successful and here's how I did it. There's so much of that, I think, on the internet with all the coaching and the gurus and stuff. But sometimes the people that failed have the most valuable advice.
Totally agreed. Failure is
Awesome.
just an opportunity to learn something, for sure.
That's great. Yeah, I think you'll find with entrepreneurs, right? I mean, take famous entrepreneurs like Walt Disney, right, who failed and went bankrupt several times before he found something that worked. To even your story, right, where you tried a couple different things before you found something that worked for you and allowed you to be successful. Um, let's talk a little bit about the model, if you will, around handshaking. So it connects. Um, really, at the end of the day, we can talk about digital real estate, but at the end of the day, you're really connecting consumers that are trying to buy a product or a service, probably more of a service, with folks that are providing the service. And you mentioned like 5-star reviews. So, how do you bring those two together? And how do you make sure that the people that you're bringing together aren't just people that are willing to pay for the digital real estate, but are actually going to provide a great quality service?
Yeah, definitely. And although I love talking about the digital real estate, I think if we were to use that phrase with our customers, that a lot of them just wouldn't understand it. All they know is the internet's this weird place, especially with concrete contractors, which was kind of the first website example I shared earlier, kind of one of the first niches we experimented with. But yeah, I mean, the first website we built, Fort Collins Concrete Contractors, was its own independent brand, and it was not related to any concrete contractor in Fort Collins. So later, when we found someone and said, "Hey, we're going to send you these customers, go give them a quote. Here's how much it costs," um, they needed to understand that the customer would be calling our website, and that's why they'd say, "Hey, can is this Fort Collins Concrete Contractors?" The customer would not call saying, "Hey, is this Dario's Quality Concrete?" Because they know
Yeah.
our brand, not the contractor, and that's why we're kind of the landlord. Is if the contractor does not do a good job, if we see a 1-star review, they're out, or the price is tripled because now we need to invest in marketing because we got bad reviews, and so they need to do a good job, and otherwise we're going to send the work to someone else, one of the competitors, actually. So yeah, it's important. I mean, even though we own the asset, it's still in the contractor's best interest to help us get good reviews, send us pictures of their work. That way, we can bring the website to life and be more accurate on what the person calling can actually expect. That's why it's in their best interest to sign long-term contracts with us. Lock in your cheap price because the price might go up later. The quality of leads might go up later. We might start sending more commercial jobs instead of residential jobs. We've changed lots of people's lives with this stuff. I mean, what do you do when you get 36 customers that 36 new is the package we sell? And that's our target minimum each month. Some websites get way more, some are new and don't get 36 calls per month. But we try to get 36 calls per month and sell that with payment up front, to answer your question about the model. And that can change the lives of some small business owners, especially if 6 of those are calls with jobs that are $40,000, $70,000 parking lot concrete jobs, for example, or something else that's commercial and big.
Yeah. It's awesome because it feeds people, right? It's not just that contractor, but it's all his crews. And I've seen so many entrepreneurs start a small business and struggle, right? And they're like, "Oh, I built this website," and it just looks like trash, right? It's just, and that's okay, right? But they went out and they bought a Wix site or a WordPress site, and and then they're like so proud. They're like, "Look at my site," and I'm like, "Oh, you're killing me." And you're like, "Yeah, maybe you might want to do this or this." And so to me, it just, I watch them on their struggles and I watch them try to get their little business going, and they get one, two, and there's just such a long lead time to get your darn business going. But to plug into somebody who does this and this is their core business, right, is to not only build websites. That's only a portion of what you guys do, and you're not building custom websites like you said, right? You're building a website with its own presence that's really geared around bringing buyers to people that are selling to plug into something like that and just supercharge your business right out of the gate. And it's a relatively new model. Digital real estate, probably within the last 10 years. Internet's obviously been around longer than that. That's just got to feel good, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, sure, let's take money out of it, right? People make money. The contractor's making money. You guys charge a fee. You make a little bit money, but you're also validating that those contractors are good. And so the consumer's getting value there too. It's kind of like this win-win swirl there between everybody, but it's just got to feel good helping those businesses actually, thrive.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels better to show a contractor, hey, you invested. I remember 2 years ago we did a little case study. We showed this contractor, look, you paid us $6,000 over the last 6 months. Number one, that's not enough. Number two, you earned at least $39,000 that we knew about, and we should send you more leads. We have more leads. Let's move this relationship up. So it really feels good when it's a win. When it's a win, and you're both winning, and you feel that they're winning so much that you demand they pay more, and they do. But in the early days with personal websites, we can try to make something beautiful, but that doesn't really matter if new people aren't making their way on that website. So I think it feels better when you find something that sticks and then you
Yeah.
scale it up.
And a lot of people, right, take like Angie, right? A lot of people go to
Mm-hmm.
Angie, which is like this brokerage, essentially doing the same thing, but on just a nationally branded kind of tons of services. What I really love about what you guys do, take Fort Collins again, right? Fort Collins
Mm-hmm.
Concrete. There's all this press out there right now about buy local, right? Buy local, consume local, find the
Mm-hmm.
local contractor. And that's harder when you go to like an Angie. And I'm not suggesting Angie doesn't do a great job. So no hate mail about Michael not liking Angie. I'm sure Angie's a wonderful person, but like, just to me, what appeals to this concept is, if I live in Fort Collins and I see Fort Collins, those are my people, right? Those are local guys that are going to show
Mm-hmm.
up. They live in my community. Um, I want to support local. I've been trained to support local by the media and by society. So it's such a cool concept, right? To make that connection at that local level.
Yeah, it's. I think people like seeing a local phone number that when you look at it and you look at where it is on the internet. If you feel like you can text that number, oh, that sounds so much better than filling out a 20-step process on Angie's, or or calling a 1-800 number that you know is going to be redirected to a call center, or make you push some buttons. Like, and that's kind of our thing. Is every website you can call or text it and be instantly connected with a human. I think that makes us a little bit more sticky um, when people are calling around, more likely to spend more
What
time with us. But yeah, look, supporting local, definitely.
I I love what you just said, right? So people think of this as like a website, right? But you just said you can call or you could text. Because let me tell you, I'll share my story. I went to Angie, and I posted an opportunity. I was getting roof quotes, right? And I went out there and I picked three people, and I said, I want quotes from these three people. I'm interested in talking to them. And like 26 people called me, right? Like, obviously, Angie took my information and blasted it across a million people. So, A, that's the last time I'll ever use Angie. So, Angie, if you're listening, great way to lose somebody who's a buyer of services. But B, I don't want to talk to people. I don't want people calling me, which is weird because I'm a podcast host and I talk to people all the time, but I don't want people calling me, right? So the ability to text, if I can text somebody about, hey, I need concrete poured, I'm trying to pour a patio, it's 10 by 10 in the backyard. Do you think you can
Perfect.
come give me a quote? They text back, absolutely, sure I can. I can be there tonight at 6. Does that work? Yep, absolutely, great. Man, I can do that while I'm sitting on a call. I can do that while I'm on a podcast with Matt. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what a convenience that, again, that concrete contractor isn't going to be able to enable SMS on his business without your help. I mean, you're really kind of elevating their business to a higher class.
Yeah, we love that feature of it. And I've got a team, like 6 different team members that help us handle all the inbound and outbound calls. If someone calls us and the contractor does not pick it up, we call that person back, not 26 people, just us. We say, you called us, we're returning your call. So yeah, we call people back and try to keep a tight handle on that and make it easy for the consumer if they express an interest.
I love it. Yeah. How big is handshaken.com? Because, right, we see you and Matt's the face of Handshaken. And if you go out to handshaken.com, you'll see cool videos and stuff. But how big is your company grown to?
I'm sorry, I think you asked how big of a team are we?
Yes. How big did you guys get to?
Well, today we are at 12 people, but we just had to let one person go. We had another 2 people resign. The last few months, we were at 16 people a few months ago. We're hiring right now. We're actually we need an HR specialist, and we
There
need
you go.
two more people on the sales team. Hopefully, at some point next year, we can afford a part-time or even full-time accountant would be great because we need help with the accounting. We have 125 different assets. We need accrual. I studied my master's in business, but it's not my
Yeah,
specialty.
you don't want to be an accountant.
And there's not time for it either. I need someone more passionate about that than me. So
I love it.
12.
That's
Just
awesome growth, right? That's really cool.
a baker's dozen. That's how big we are.
That's
Or
awesome.
just a dozen.
So how do you target markets, right? When you're like, we talked about Fort Collins as a great example. When you're like, okay, we think we can bring our service and help here, like how do you guys find new markets?
Yeah, well, like you said earlier, I sure do like searching for domains to see what's available because we like perfect match 2word.coms. However, that doesn't say what plays in the competition. I'd want to call my SEO manager and say her improved processes on how we look at the competition and the search volume for a variety of different keywords. But we used to launch 10 websites per month. So our
Wow.
research did not need to be perfect because 7 or 8 of them would win and we'd end up pulling the plug on 2 or 3 and we'd launch them already in 1 month. So it's not like we were planning for months on which one to launch. It's okay to pull the plug in a few and repurpose the content on another website that we see a little bit more traction with. So now today we're only launching 4 per month. And of course you want to look at the search volume and you want to take a look at the competitors. We pay Ahrefs for a subscription that allows us to kind of look at the domain rating, how many
Awesome.
backlinks it has, what type of backlinks it has, what keywords it ranks for, what position it is on those keywords. And it's quite overwhelming to even look at one page on one website. And then you multiply that by 10, 25 pages on one website. And then you multiply that by 125 websites that we have. And then you multiply that by the 10, maybe we look at more than 10 competitors per website, per competitor per website. So it's kind of a data overload, but I definitely recommend that. If you're new to this, you can use Moz.com, Moz.com. I think they have like 10 free searches per month if you want to kind of look at domain authority. We use DA instead of DR like Ahrefs. They're another great tool to kind of look at the competition if you want to launch your own lead generation website one day.
That's awesome. Yeah, how, just because you're in kind of the domain business, if you will, personal interest of mine, now there used to just be .com, right? And if there was not a website with .com, well, tough shit, you couldn't have a domain name, right? Or you had to change it or do something weird. Now there's, .us, .me, .this, .that, .dog, .cat, . It's a little crazy with all the extensions. How important is it to have a website with that .com, do you think, just in your opinion, versus one of these 200 other extensions?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I'll try to keep it real short. But in my opinion, today in 2021, and probably for the next 10 years, you gotta have your .com, and let me tell you why. I've actually been a domain name investor for maybe 12, 13 years, much longer than I've been a digital asset developer and investor. Like I would buy the domains. I would not develop them. I didn't know how to do that or how to make money from it. Now I do. So now we own about 700 domains, and 125 of them are Handshaken. Those are our developed lead generation websites. And I have a lot of just random brands or two-word.coms, and sometimes I get emails that are intended for other people. I'll give you an example. One of our lead generation websites is called West Jordan Concrete, which is a city in Utah. And long and behold, when we launched that website, we made sure that there's no brand like ours. We searched everywhere online, but we did not check the Secretary of State in that state. So later, there's a website called westjordanconcretellc.com. And
Uh,
that is an example where their domain is less, it's harder to remember than ours. Ours is a more premium domain. West Jordan Concrete is the exact city, West Jordan
yes,
concrete.com. It's the
I
exact
love it.
match for the brand. Where if someone goes and emails info at westjordanconcretellc.com, they need to remember the LLC. And now if they're doing westjordan.concrete.me, you add a different extension, people are not going to remember it. And I also own a lot of, like, just today, I got a email on my domain H Attorneys. H, like my last name, Holmes, attorneys.com, because at one point I was thinking of going to law school. So, however, there's these two law firms, htattorneys.com and hnattorneys.com, and we get their emails because their staff and their customers make typos, and instead of sending it to, I won't tell you their name, although it's online, it's whatever the owner's name is, the partner, at htattorneys.com, they email it at hattorneys.com, and then I see all this confidential stuff that I should never be seen. So
Wow.
and that's like a typo example. So all these little things make a difference. And actually, while we're on the note of domains, I should mention to you that you mentioned my website's on handshaken.com without the G, but actually we had to go through the process of buying Handshaken with the G. And I did that about 2 years ago. And actually, finally, before the end of this year, while we're in the slow season, winter months, we're going to shift our domain, which has the potential to affect SEO settings. So SEO, how many keywords? So we're doing that. We had to wait to do that, but we're making the shift on all of our emails and our website. We're moving it from Handshaken without the G to Handshaking, spelled exactly how it is. And by the way, the domain cost us $7,800.
Yeah, domain names are crazy. It's funny to me, and then people buy domain names and then they use them as a redirect, right? So I just typed in handshaking with a G, and it redirected me to your web presence, which is
Oh, good.
handshaken.com.
It's still working.
Without,
Excellent.
so it is working. Yes,
Yeah.
that's awesome. But so many people buy these domains, and it's just kind of interesting. Or you're like, oh, I have a great business idea. You type it in, it comes up. Google, or GoDaddy or whoever you're using is like, hey, that's a premium domain, and it's selling for $8,000. And you look it up, and it's like there's nothing there, right? It's people that are
Mm-hmm.
holding domains that, like you said, are just such a great word that there's value in it, right? And I have a lot of friends that are like, well, I'm not paying that. Okay, somebody will, right? It's just a cost of that business.
Yeah.
It's digital real estate. Would you pay for the real estate that you were going to build your office on? Well, yes. Okay, well, this is the digital office on the internet. It's just so weird. It's like people just don't understand it yet. Even though the internet's been
Very
around
true.
forever, people just don't understand, like, there's value in domain names.
Yeah.
You might not like it, but there is.
Yeah. And they don't really, it's easy to get wrapped up in, like, how many people do we know? Who we actually talk with in a year and have a meaningful conversation? 100, 200, 300? How many friends are you limited to on Facebook? 5,000? But then you really think about the numbers. Well, in Denver, how many people are there? At my college, there's about 20,000 undergrad and graduates. In the whole metro area, there's 3 million. It's like, wait, even if I was close with my 5,000 Facebook friends, am I really the only one with that idea who would want that domain? I've been trying to buy mattholmes.com from another Matt Holmes for the past 3 years. He said no. He said no to my offer of 5,000. I said, you're a photographer who doesn't do your photography business anymore. But I'm taking the bet that I'm one of the few Matt Holmeses that would pay close to what he'd want. And if I wait him out, maybe he'll let it go. Because the domain, a common first name like mine, I'd estimate they're worth like $2,500 maximum.
there's all kinds of toys, right? Like I helped somebody, they wanted a domain for their business, and it was the guy wanted like $8,000, and I said okay, and he was being a real jerk about it. He was like, "Well, I don't use it, but you can't have it, and I'm going to charge you $8,000 for it." And I was like, "Okay." So then I helped her. We did some research. I found that his logo trademark had expired, so I trademarked his logo for her. And I said,
No
awesome,
way.
you're now in
Is
trademark infringement of the logo, and you owe me $8,000 in penalties, or I'm going to take you to court, or you could settle
no.
by giving me your domain name. And that worked too.
Wow, I've never thought about getting into like the trademark expiration auction. I mean, a lot of the domains we acquire are sometimes expired, which means someone was paying for them and now they're not, or they sold the company and forgot to transfer the domain, or they passed away. Tons of different reasons. But wow, I
Yes.
should look into that with trademarks.
It's a
Just
cool, underhanded way to do business when somebody's being a jerk. Because
yeah,
most people register their trademarks and they pay the $35 or whatever, but they
mhm,
never maintain them.
yeah,
And so you can go take their trademark, take
that's
their
crazy,
logo, and take the trademark of their logo out from under them and then sell it back to them.
crazy, crazy.
Very
That's
underhanded way to do business. I'm not
that's
suggesting it.
yeah. Well, it sounds like I mean it's the wild, wild west in some ways, but it does sound like a little bit cyber squatting. Like one thing
Yeah.
I could not do is, I remember when I was a younger domain investor. I'll keep this short. I my mortgage got sold from what was it? My mortgage got sold from like Bank of America to this other company, and they mailed me while I was actually doing that 6 month special projects job in Washington D.C. So I never got the mail, and one day my mortgage just disappeared from my account, and I had no idea what to do. No communication, only a piece of mail that was sent. Must have been weeks after I had left Denver for just 6 months,
Wow.
and I was so angry. I finally found out who it was because I think because I saw a late payment on my credit or something. I can't remember. And I called Bank. I think that's why I called Bank of America. I was like, "Where's my mortgage? I need to pay it." And I'm not on auto pay. I have the money for you. Let me send it. And they like, oh, it's with this. What was it like? Front Star. I can't remember the name of the company. Like something Star Mortgage. And I was mad, so I registered some of their domains, and I could never get in contact with anyone. And I couldn't find a way to get the online. I couldn't contact them. And then eventually, they at the same time emailed me saying, "You need to give us these domains." And I said, "They're yours. Just give me the direct number of someone who can help me with my mortgage." And we made a. I guess that's a trade. That's them kind of sucking, but they got their
I
domains,
love
and
it.
at least I got my direct line instead of all the time I wasted trying to figure that out.
I love it. That's a great story,
the
right? I
reason,
mean,
the, yeah, the reason I wanted to share that is that's called cyber squatting because I'm kind of taking someone else's brand and squatting on it after they had it. Now, if you do it before they had it, then that's not cyber squatting. That's just investing in a good piece of land because it's a
well,
brandable and no one owns it. But if you have to be careful with cyber squatting with domains, and of course, it's not
I
not a good
love
thing.
the recent, right. It's relevant recently with Meta, right? So Facebook says we're going to call ourselves Meta, and there's already a company that sells gaming PCs called Meta, and they're like, awesome, and we'll sell our domain to you for $20 million.
I've
I
been
was
wanting
like,
to type
oh,
in meta.com. Is that who owns meta.com?
I think it's Meta PC. I think they were having some fun with it, but yeah,
Yeah,
it was just laughable, right? That like they didn't figure it out. So Facebook now presents on Meta. I
yeah,
think they're metapc.com, but I think they own the domain prior to Facebook. And it just goes to show you that, you got to be aware when you're creating a business and a domain. If you don't, leverage somebody who has digital real estate to help you with that, which I highly suggest. Meta PC is for sale for $87,000 right now. But domains, we
yeah.
could geek out on domains for
Oh
probably
yeah.
hours because it's very cool.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but but handshaking's a very cool business, and it's good to see you growing and thriving. And when folks look at that, think about the people aspect. If you listen to what Matt said, he talked about relationships and trust and helping people, which just makes it a cool brand and a cool company. So Matt, I want to thank you while in Costa Rica of all places on your way home to take time to join the podcast and share not only about handshaken.com, but also talking about domain names and your journey, which is also really cool, and your world record, which is again really cool.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the kind words and great recap there.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, that's it for this episode, and we will talk to you guys soon. Matt's information will be down below in the comment section on how to get a hold of Handshaken or handshaking.com. Both of them will get you to Matt, and you can find out about his company and watch them continue to grow.